Yeah, I just.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's CA Community Webcast. My name is Kristen Palazzolo, your Community Manager, and today's webcast is on CA Identity Service, which is a new product from CA Security team, was launched at CA World, and we're excited to talk to you all today about this new product and what it can help do for your business. Today you'll be hearing from Kathy Hickey. She's going to go through a presentation with you, and then she's going to pass it over to Joe for a demo. And then we'll open it up for the last 15 minutes or so for some live Q&A. If you think of any questions, though, throughout the presentation or the demo, feel free to ask them in the chat window or the Q&A window, and we will get through to them as soon as we can. I'm going to send an email out to everyone who attends today's webcast with some follow-up communications, including links to the slide deck as well as the replay. You can feel free to share with anyone who missed this. And I will also send a link to the Identity Service community. If you're not already a member and following that space, please do so. All right, so thank you, Kathy and Joe, for doing this today. Excited to hear from you.
Great, thanks, Kristen. So I'll start with just a couple of slides, and I really want to make sure that we're spending the bulk of the time hearing from Joe regarding the demo, where he's actually going to highlight some of the more exciting capabilities within the solution specifically targeted at hybrid enterprises. So as Kristen said, CA Identity Service is a new solution that we brought to market. It's the next generation identity as a service that's enabling single sign-on, provisioning, and identity lifecycle management for SaaS-based applications, as well as with an integration with CA SSO, also known as SiteMinder, providing some capabilities allowing single sign-on to on-premise protected applications as well. So we'll be showing you that. And really what we've done with this solution, we focused in on three core areas that we heard from customers and from folks within IT organizations that for specific pain points and areas that they're struggling with in this new digital transformation they're facing, moving towards becoming a digital workforce. So the three areas were simplifying that workforce experience, empowering application owners, and managing identity sprawl. And I'll just spend a minute or two talking about each one of these. With the simplified workforce experience, what we've done is we're delivering to market a solution that has been very, very focused in on that user experience. Users within organizations now tend to be much more technically savvy. They have a certain level of expectation when it comes to an experience that they've grown accustomed to in their personal lives, leveraging newer technologies, newer devices, and quite frankly, just streamlined user experiences. And have an expectation when they come into work to have very similar, easy, intuitive experiences as they interact with their business applications as well. So we've delivered what we call the Unified Launchpad, which really is it provides you with the opportunity to provide to your end users within your organization a single place to go to access all the applications that they have access to. So to be clear, it is a dynamic launchpad that is populated based upon who logs in and what they have access to. And that is populated through a couple of different avenues. We have out-of-the-box rich bidirectional connectors in support of the most popular cloud applications. We also support, basically very easily through a couple of clicks, you can onboard any SAML 2.0 enabled application. And then finally, through our rich integration with CASSO, CA SiteMinder, we have the ability to populate the Launchpad with CASSO protected applications, and those could be on-premise, they could be SaaS-based, but we do this through our rich integration that provides us with basically a list of all of the applications that are protected by CASSO and a list of who has access to them. And then we're able to also dynamically populate the Launchpad with those SSO protected applications based on who logs in and what they have access to, basically preserving the policy definitions that have been defined within the on-premise CASSO and leveraging those in a way that enables us to dynamically populate that Launchpad. The second area that we're focusing in on is empowering application owners. And really what this is there's been this phenomenon of shadow IT that has grown within organizations. As we were talking about, our end users outside of IT tend to be much more technically savvy. Lines of businesses are driving a lot of decisions. So shadow IT has cropped up. And really what we're focusing in on is we're advising don't fight shadow IT, actually empower shadow IT. Provide them with the tools that will make them successful, and as well remove IT from being the bottleneck. Put the expertise in the hands of the subject matter experts. So with CA Identity Service, we're able to very rapidly and easily onboard SaaS-based applications and enable provisioning to those SaaS-based applications with our rich bidirectional connectors. And it's so easy to do that we feel very confident that you're able to put this in the hands. You basically delegate administration of each of those SaaS apps to those line of business folks who are the subject matter experts, who know who should have what level of access. And they're able to do this through a business-friendly rules engine that automates that provisioning and deprovisioning of accounts and entitlements, rich entitlements. And as users change roles, as people within the organization change roles, the rules will automatically fire to kind of deprovision what they shouldn't have and provision what they should have with their new roles. So it's kind of a set it and forget it type of setup. And it does enable the line of business to more rapidly onboard these applications they need, but yet still enable it to fall under the realm of IT, so IT has that insight that they need to ensure that compliance that needs to be there, and to ensure that they are securing those business assets within these business applications. And then finally, the last area that we've been focusing in on, which is really controlling and managing that cloud identity sprawl, which really is, IT organizations and security groups really do need to have this kind of control and visibility over their cloud environment, and that cloud environment is expanding on a daily basis. So by leveraging our rich bidirectional connectors, as we described earlier, it's ensuring that the right people have the right access. It's also ensuring IT knows what SaaS-based applications are out there and who has access as well, because you're kind of rolling it all up under the same umbrella. And really what it's also doing is ensuring through that full life cycle of when people join an organization or when they move around in the organization or if they leave the organization, ensuring that they do have that right level of access. One of the other benefits of those rich bidirectional connectors is it performs a reconciliation process. So what it's able to do is we're able to very quickly surface to administrators what we call orphan accounts or rogue accounts. And what this means is that there are accounts that are enabled on those target SaaS applications for which we can't associate or reconcile to an identity that's under management, which means that account may actually be giving someone access to that SaaS-based application who's not supposed to have access. So we very quickly surface that to the administrators of the application, and from within CA Identity Service enable them to address those, to remediate those by either terminating the account or associating it to an existing user, tagging it as a service account, or even saying, you know what, that person should be under management. I want to import that person as an identity that should be under management. So really does enable organizations to reduce risk, to ensure the right people have the right access, as well as potentially reduce costs, because most of these applications are charging per identity. So with that, that's kind of a very high-level overview. I want to hand it over to Joe to be able to provide you with some additional insight and actually give you a demonstration of the solution as well.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you all for joining us today on this near holiday week, and I hope everybody's having a happy holiday. So we wanted to spend a few minutes today kind of talking about the hybrid use case and kind of focus in on that scenario for you today. And I've got ready for you is a demonstration to kind of highlight some of those capabilities. Before I jump into the demo, I just wanted to have a little bit of a high-level architecture of the solution. Kathy did articulate some of the value propositions and the features and the capabilities of the overall solution, and kind of wanted to see and show you how that all kind of comes together. So with CA Identity Service, we've got a SaaS-first approach, but we're also going to kind of leverage and enable our customers that have been with us for many years in the CASSO space or the SiteMinder space, and kind of bring them together along with this journey into the future as far as to go with the SaaS approach, understanding that people want access to what they have. They want to potentially leverage a dashboard or a launch pad, as you kind of see in the identity service here. As we move forward, we do want to understand that it's not only about single sign-on. So as we kind of introduce this solution at CA World, we also wanted to kind of hit the market with a rich connector, as Kathy put it, that also enables not only SSO, but also the provisioning and the deprovisioning, some kind of classic and traditional capabilities that you would see in an identity and access management product, but in the SaaS model, along with not only making sure or ensuring people have access to what they want, but really giving them a vehicle, a launch pad to leverage and access those capabilities that might be found in some other SaaS applications. So today, because as you're kind of introducing yourself to this technology, we have capabilities of bringing people into the solution to leverage, SaaS applications, to leverage our Launchpad to gain access to applications. We do have capabilities native within the solution for people to register. As we kind of evolve and help support people as they gain access to the solution, we do have technology and a people source to help automate the kind of injection of user accounts into the solution. So kind of taking identities that you might already have in your infrastructure and bring them into Identity Service so they can leverage the Launchpad, gain access to what they need, and allow your administrators to have control over what people have access to. As we move into kind of the hybrid deployment model, we understand that there is a kind of greater group that may have already leveraged. We think many of you on this phone call are of this kind of variety of people that have leveraged our single sign-on solution and are protecting and enabling access to on-prem applications. And we thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of hit the market with not only the rich connectors outward facing to the cloud, but then also providing capabilities to provide access to on-prem applications as well. So in that model, we can bring users into the identity service, allow single sign-on to those on-prem applications, all the while kind of lowering that barrier from an administrative overhead. We can look at what CASSO has defined as an application, understand who should have access to it, and automatically populate someone's Launchpad based on CASSO protection rules. So we think it's a really best of both worlds from a perspective of an end user getting access to what they want, while not kind of burdening the administrator to have to set up kind of advanced rules on who should have access to a specific application. Since that's already in CASSO, let's just leverage that information and populate someone's dashboard. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the demo. So introducing CA Identity Service. So this is kind of the entry point into our service, logging in as Anita. Now, I want you to kind of take a visual snapshot of what this Launchpad looks like right now. Anita is an end user. She has access to a few applications in the identity service, Salesforce being one. So we've got a couple cloud, and then we've got this one called IT on-prem. And that one's the one we really kind of want to focus on. That is the one that has been brought in through the integration of the hybrid flow. This is a protected, CASSO protected application, and we have set it up so that Identity Service knows what this application is. The logic built into our solution has enabled for that launch icon to be visible on Anita's Launchpad. And we'll kind of, do a deep dive or a little deeper dive into how that was set up in just a moment. But I wanted to kind of show you what the Launchpad was and how it is capable. So Anita could also go to, say, salesforce.com, just click access, and we're using federated, traditional federated protocols to give people access to what they need. All the while also leveraging a rich connector to also enable the creation of an account, and as Kathy alluded to, from an administrator perspective, removing access or changing access as deemed necessary by the organization. So I'm going to go ahead and switch from here, and I'm going to log in as a more privileged user and kind of show you how all this is set up. So here is an administrator. You can see just quickly the visual difference between Anita and this backup administrator. So this backup administrator has a few extra buttons. Actually, I think just one extra button. Actually two. So we got access to CASSO admin UI, which I'll use to kind of show you how the policies and the domains are set up in the SSO world and how they translate into launchable applications here in Identity Service. This administrator has authority to see who has or what users are in the solution, and we can do some behavior or actions on specific users. Here's Anita, who we actually just played with. We can see what kind of accounts that they have and some profile information as well. And we do have some ability to edit some of that. If you refer back to the slides when you received those, in the diagram I showed you, there was a little people source from a perspective of bringing accounts in. So if you do instantiate or use that technology, fields and values for a user will be populated and brought into the solution through that kind of feeder system. Among other things you'd want to manage in the solution or applications, so it's not all about the user, we also need to get them access to various applications. And we can do that through this panel here. So we've got several set up already. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of show you what an add of a new one would be. So here's just a quick sampling of what applications we currently have, and we're ever evolving this, and we think this is a great outcome of these types of community webcasts, is we can interact with you guys and get some feedback as to some applications you would like to see on this list. So by all means, in the comment or in the chat or by audio question, let us know what you think. If there's things that you want to see in here, we'd love to get some feedback. Being that this is about the hybrid use case, I really want to focus in on what that process is like. So there's a couple we have already set up, and I'll kind of show you those here in just a second. But I want to show you what it would take to actually set this up. So a part of the people feed that we have, we also have another package that integrates with the policy server and the CASSO infrastructure that you have in your infrastructure. Once that is set up, or once that's installed and configured, we have access to communicate with it. And when we do, we can actually read what's in the policy server and use that and leverage that to create an application for someone to use. Now, this information that we receive is going to be used for two things. It's going to be used for us to drive an understanding from an identity service perspective, who should actually see this application on the Launchpad. So who actually has access to launch this and log into this application. We'll also need to know what the real link is. So as you guys know, or many of you might know as SSO administrators, when we define rules and policies within CASSO admin UI, we don't necessarily write rules with literal paths, like what's the host, what's the port. We use kind of our agent items or our agent groups to define kind of a relative path in combination with effective resources or paths to a specific protected resource. So when we're kind of transitioning to integration with CA Identity Service, we need to understand some information. So today, and this is kind of an ever-evolving interaction between our technologies here, and we're going to involve this and make this even easier in the future to understand it and with the terminology. But for now, we're kind of identifying through what agent are you protecting the resource that you have in mind that you want to show up on a launch pad. And I'll go ahead and select one. Here's where you kind of, it's slightly different from what you probably would understand from an SSO perspective. So this is generally would be where you put the agent or the agent group. But we would put like the host and the port in this location. This is where the power starts to come in, and I think the administrative barrier is lowered. So we can actually look at what information is truly defined within the policy server and understand what applications are protected and how they're protected. So we can actually see that the CAIT app that I actually logged in with Anita's account just moments ago is shown here with the effective path. And we can actually see what the effective resource would be, and that's kind of the concatenation of the policy and rule here, and a preview of what the actual link would be. So when they actually hit the launch pad item, this is the URL that would be invoked. And again, we're kind of evolving or iterating on this, on terminology, and we're going to make this even easier in coming releases, and that's the beauty of SaaS, is we can kind of effectively, really quickly pivot and change and adapt to kind of the evolving integration that we want to kind of drive towards. So we're going to see this kind of change maybe a little bit, but we think we're very close in how this actually is integrated. So for now, I'm going to kind of leave you right here, and I'm going to kind of basically go back to the applications. I'm going to show you how that's set up. So here's that app that's already been set up from a integration with the on-prem CASSO policy server we have for this environment. We can see some kind of dashboard items of effective accounts, when we've done last synchronizations and things like that. But let me jump into the configuration really quick and kind of show you what this looks like. Kathy did allude to kind of the delegated administration that we have, and that's translated into many aspects of the overall solution, whether that's app administrators or app owners or specific administrators within the solution. So backup admin has a lot of rights, and he kind of sees everything, but we can kind of delegate that off in slices. We can see that Greg here is the app owner for this account. Now the integration is kind of the pivotal piece I kind of want to show you. So this is exactly how I was kind of leading you towards. So here is the kind of the host and port, the real one that we actually used in Anita's case, and kind of the effective resource that we're going. And if there's any, maybe a direct kind of postfix or the remainder of the URL that you'd want to add, you could add it in this kind of window in the URL postfix area to get a true, effective, or realized link. Now, Kathy did mention about the power of the solution and how we basically can derive rules to establish when we're talking about traditional cloud applications that we might see in someone's launchpad. And we saw that through the effective, I think what I showed, salesforce.com, on how someone would get access to that. So we could take a look at what that rule is. So our kind of positioning with this solution is we want to automate as much as we can, and we're doing that effectively through rules. So we've talked about a few applications that we have access to SSO and provision with our rich connector. Once we've established that connector and that SSO kind of pipeline, we can determine who should be granted access, when we should actually invoke provisioning through a rule set. So there's many ways we could do this. We could do it with literal ones. For the kind of first iteration, we're going to go with the rule on how this fires. So when someone is a type employee, so when their user type is employee, this rule would fire and they would gain access to salesforce.com. If we translate that or kind of do the equivalent on the CASSO or the hybrid use case, we're going to leverage the definitions that are found within CASSO's policy server to define that. So we know that that rule already exists. That rule is defined on the SSO platform. So we decided not to, bring that burden forward into identity service and have you repeat that rule set. And we're just going to leverage those policies that have already been defined. So what I wanted to do is just quickly kind of show you what that looks like for those that are kind of wondering how the policy server is set up on the other side of this kind of coin. So I'm going to drill into the policies and the domain for the application I SSO'd in using Anita's account. And that, I believe, was the CAIT application. So you can see that we've got kind of the agent and the effective resource there as the CAIT application is protected with a basic authentication from here. So this is the information through the kind of package we have, or the technology or the integration technology we've got on-prem that's communicating with this policy server. It basically brings this information into CA Identity Service. We can then use that information to define a new application and then leverage the rule set on who has access to it. So the glue that kind of brings that together is right here. So for those familiar with the policy language, we can see that people that are members of this group in the underlying directory would have access to this. So Identity Service would basically translate or understand who Anita is in relation to the directory that they came from, and from there we can understand, should we actually populate Anita's launchpad with the icon. So that information is basically brought over, and then we use that to define applications and then define if it should show up on the launchpad. So one last thing I kind of wanted to show you as well, so we talked about the kind of the rule set, is some of the general settings as well, and that's kind of this part here. So I'm kind of trailing it back. I showed you kind of the interaction with Anita with the launchpad, how she gets access to things through rules, how we set up applications that leverage those rules, and then also here. So I just kind of wanted to show you that this is the other side. So we'll basically install a package on-prem that will communicate with the policy server. We then make a secure link to that technology here, and we have an ability to start a synchronization or schedule a synchronization of bringing that information over. So depending on your policies and procedures, as far as your change management of when and how often you change policy or new people come in, we would see kind of a choreographed effort between the synchronization of Identity Service and CASSO's policies and procedures coming or played out through this synchronization. So this is the CA Identity Service kind of experience that we wanted to show you today. I can show you a couple other integrations here, maybe AWS login using a different account, so we can kind of see that how that experience is. And again, this is kind of unprecedented from a CASSO perspective. We've been tried and true when it comes to writing policy and protecting applications. We haven't always given you an ability to provide a presentation layer for access. And we think this is really the future of how people would like to interact and gain access to the applications they do have rights to use, whether that be on-prem with the hybrid use case or cloud applications when it comes to the SaaS first model. So we really wanted to kind of introduce you guys to what we're working on and how we're coming to market with our solution, and really engage with you and maybe get your interest perked on potentially leveraging or maybe trying out this overall solution. So I'm just going to bounce quickly back, and Kathy, you can.
Hey.
Yep.
Yep. I'm gonna pause you just really quick. So there was a question that came in. So what is the sync function doing? And I know there's a couple of different kind of areas where we're leveraging a sync process. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yep, sure. So I'll bring this slide back to kind of help me with that. So there's two synchronization pieces that would occur. So the one listed here is the people source that would take users from, say, maybe Active Directory and bring them into identity. Certainly back up to this one. So when we're talking outside of the hybrid case, we can synchronize or bring users in from Active Directory and bring them into identity service so they can leverage the solution and log in and gain access to their Launchpad. When we talk about the hybrid use case, we're going to leverage the policy server and its configuration with another kind of integration solution or another source or syncer to basically talk to the policy server to bring policy information. So you saw it as agent and the affected resource. So we're bringing that information back, so it's partially policy information, and then also who has access to given resources based on the user store that's connected to them. And today that's Active Directory and how we do that. Anything outside of Active Directory, we can synchronize up into a CA identity service through an API call or a kind of a user API call to create users. So if you find that you've got users that have access to CA/SSO protected applications and the connected user store to that domain is a non-AD variety, then we have an API that basically can allow you to communicate and push users up into identity service so that when identity service correlates who has access based on what they see in the policy that was synchronized, they can make the correlation and appropriately populate Launchpads. So I hope that helped maybe clear up any questions you might have on what's being synchronized.
So one last thing, Joe, just mentioning the synchronization with the rich bidirectional connectors.
What's being synchronized there? Is that the question?
Yeah. Yep. Just one last thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I answered it first kind of on this below section. So when we kind of talk about, my apologies, wrong direction. When we talk about the rich bidirectional connector, we take identity information, so what information we have about the identity that's in identity service, and use that to provision it. So you can look at it from a traditional provisioning, deprovisioning solution. We have an on-prem solution identity service that does provisioning. This is basically taking what is needed to create an account on a specific endpoint. So if that's AWS, Office 365, Box, whatever it might be. So based on the requirement of the endpoint, we would create the user appropriately using the same connector that we use for SSO. So we synchronize the attributes that are required by the specific endpoint, and that does differ per endpoint. So there's not one answer I can give you for that one.
Great, thanks.
So I think that brings us up to our last slide, which is kind of the ask of you on the phone. We'd love for you to engage with us and try out our solution. We've got various resources that you can leverage. I believe this recording will be available if any of your colleagues have potentially missed it, or if you want to just kind of follow up on what was said. The goal, though, is we'd love you to play with it. Being a SaaS solution, it's very easy for us to stand it up for you, and we hope that we've kind of done our due diligence on kind of pitching the value, and we'd love for you to engage with us and to try it out. Specifically, if you have CASSO today and would like to see how that hybrid interaction actually does work and how it is enabled. So I don't know, Kathy, if you wanted to add any other additional color to that, I'll kind of pass it to you from there.
Yeah. So I think thanks, Joe. So really what we want to invite you to do is, so this solution is a true SaaS solution built from the ground up as a SaaS solution. So we've got a trial process where you can go to the URL there, ca.com/identity-service, and you'll have links to all of these things here, including a free trial. So you basically click on that link, submit your name and your email address. You will be issued a tenant. It is a production tenant, production-like tenant, fully, kind of capable tenant that you can play around with. So you can play around with it to onboard and enable single sign-on and provisioning to those top SaaS apps. You can integrate it with a test SSO environment. There's video learning out there as well, but we'd be very interested in, as we said, for you to go out and try out the free trial and provide us any feedback that you have on that solution, on the solution. With that, Kristen, I think, are we able to open up for questions? So I guess if anyone has any questions, if you want to ask a question verbally, we'd be more than happy to take those. You probably need to unmute yourself by pressing either *6 or #6, but feel free to do that. We're here to answer any questions anyone might have.
Yeah, and if you're connected to the audio broadcast, we can add you to the line as well through your computer's microphone if you press the phone icon with a question mark. But we do have some questions coming in through the Q&A panel as well, so feel free to ask questions there and we will answer those. I'm going to open up a quick little poll right now so you guys can give us some feedback about this webcast today.
Okay, and I'm going to actually take these questions that are in. So one of the questions came in. So the strategy seems to leverage CASSO SiteMinder for all on-premise access. What about customers with hybrid use cases but don't want to deploy a full web access management platform on-prem? Absolutely. So see, the answer to that is, we are a full SaaS-based solution, so supporting SaaS only. We don't require CASSO or SiteMinder. We do believe that kind of equals a 1 + 1 = 3 for those customers who do that to be able to extend that investment. But with that said, we do support within the solution enabling single sign-on to any SAML 2.0 enabled application. We will be adding in, we're under development in the next release, be releasing form fill capabilities. So there's additional capabilities there that will enable non-SSO SiteMinder customers. Through the SAML 2.0 support that we have as well, we do have some folks who have tested against other on-premise identity and access management solutions that support SAML 2.0, so that's another avenue if someone happens not to own the CASSO SiteMinder solution. And then as well, one of the things we're kind of looking at is based upon the requirements. Are there ways in which, from customers coming in and the demand, are there ways in which we can actually enable kind of WAM-type access without a full deployment? So that's something that's kind of down the road. But there are ways in which, we can support on-prem, particularly with SAML 2.0 and the upcoming form fill as well. And then Steve's also, you have a question of, does the on-prem access allow internal apps to be securely available on the internet? So does the on-prem access allow internal apps to be securely? And I think, Joe, I'll defer to you on that one, but I believe it's going to depend on the configuration of that app.
Does the on-prem access? Yeah, so the The answer is it depends. Great answer.
Yeah.
It really is a security posture. So say you're on the VPN, it depends on if your browser can access both. So the integration that we have is a secure connection between on-prem CASSO from a policy perspective to identity service. That interaction is going to occur, that synchronization that we kind of talked about. When it comes time for a user to click an icon and get access, there could be a scenario where they could be off your network and they would not have access to that application. We will try to, we'll try to redirect the user based on the path that we have. But if that interaction, if your application isn't, say, in your DMZ through a gateway or a proxy, so to speak, this isn't going to necessarily break your security protocols, right? So that is a security decision that your team will decide on whether or not they want to do that. But that is not a requirement of the solution. So if you want to be enabling of people that have access to on-prem applications and they have access to on-prem resources based on their network connectivity, this solution can enable that. We feel it shouldn't be a requirement. So we don't want to increase your security profile just to enable this, but we do want to be enabling for those that do have access to applications. We just want to do that in a nice way through a single launch pad.
Great. Thanks, Joe. So again, a reminder, if anyone has an audio question, you will likely have to press *6 or #6 to unmute yourself, but feel free to do that. And we're also keeping an eye on the Q&A panel here.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions coming in at this time. Was that someone asking a question?
No, I was just about to say we can close it out. Question if you want, if there aren't any more questions.
I don't know if you can hear me. My name is Ephraim. I did post a question on the web earlier. For one, is there any integration point with CA Identity Manager, Identity Minder or Identity Manager in addition to the CASSO? The other question I had out there was if we already have CASSO, is this in terms of licensing, if this is seen as a separate product, or is this something that would come along with a CASSO?
Yep. So I'll answer the last question first, which is it is another product SKU on top of CASSO. However, so certainly if it was something you were interested in, we'd be more than happy to talk with you. The second thing is the integration with Identity Suite, so the CA Identity Suite, and that is absolutely something that we're talking about now, and quite frankly, working towards gathering requirements from folks as to what they would deem as valuable there. So there's a couple of things under consideration, and so I'll go into first, what can you do today? So today, as Joe described, we have the ability to name a people source, and oftentimes that people source is also, or authoritative source, that's also kind of set up as well with the Identity Suite. So, whether it's Active Directory or maybe another LDAP or something like that, so that there is kind of that, it's not necessarily an integration, but they're both kind of leveraging that from an identity standpoint, which then provides some synergy. We're also looking at ways in which we can potentially integrate Identity Suite with CA Identity Service to enable kind of quick, rich, rapid provisioning to SaaS-based applications. So kind of making it easier for existing Identity Suite customers to onboard those SaaS-based applications that the business is demanding you onboard, at a very rapid pace. So that is something that, we certainly would be, that we're certainly considering. I quite frankly would love to be able to talk with you directly to kind of get your thoughts on that as well, and what would you see as being valuable from that integration standpoint. So So I certainly would encourage, if you can, to reach out to me. My email is Kathy with a K, K-A-T-H-Y Hickey, Hickey, @ca.com. And I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thanks, Kristen, for putting that in there in the chat window so that you don't have to write it down or listen to the full recording. My email's in the chat window to all as well. If anyone has any questions, or if you've got some insights from a requirement standpoint, I'd love to hear them. All right. Well, I really want to thank everyone. As Joe said, thank you so much. I know it's very close to the holidays and people are starting to wind down, so I really appreciate the fact that you spent the time with us today, and look forward to kind of hearing from you more. And again, I really encourage everyone, go out, take a look at that free trial and give it a spin yourself to be able to provide your own feedback on that.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Joe. Well, I hope everyone has a happy holiday season, and we'll see you again at the next community webcast.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.